What it was just maybe trusting, some people in the room that, I probably shouldn't have been trusting at the time, and they went and told people, and we know how that works. And so I definitely learned, like, when we are making like high level decisions that will impact other leaders, decisions that will impact the whole team, the volunteers, your team members, your leaders, they need to hear it from you.
And really, I made the decision, right, to remove them for several different reasons, without considering the person, without considering their side, right, without asking questions, without asking the things that I should have been asking, and just completely dismissing the fact that they're human. I'm so grateful that this failure happened, because it's completely changed.
Hey, before we jump into the podcast, we want to thank all our donors and supporters who make the Today Count show possible. It's through your generosity that we're able to shape leaders through this content and this podcast. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you find yourself coming across this content. All right, let's get to the podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Today Count show. I wrote a little hook that I was supposed to memorize, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I want to read it word for word, because I think it is a bullseye for what we're going to try to get done in this episode. Here it goes. If you want to know what the next generation of leadership really looks like, you'll hear it in this episode. I've got with me today two young leaders who aren't waiting in line. They're not waiting their turn. They are already making an impact. They're leading. So I'm going to introduce you guys, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Say hello. Chris Juarez.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, Chris, to the show.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. What do you think about the studio?
I love it. It looks good. It's not what I was expecting.
Oh, yeah?
It exceeded my expectations. I'm not sure what I expected.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you're here. And Mason, glad to have you here too.
Yes, sir. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Studio is awesome.
Yeah.
You can do a podcast and you can watch some football, or not at the same time.
Not at the same time. No,
just to clarify.
We got to focus on our conversation. So, the way that I want the audience to get to know you a little bit is you're both 20 somethings, right? You're you're not late 20s yet, but one more year, Chris, and you'll be there. Well, actually, you are pretty much, because it's coming up. You told me that yesterday. So you guys are tipping mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm. You're both college graduates, and Chris, I don't know if I should call you doctor, pastor, or what, but you've earned your doctorate.
I have, yes.
Yes.
Physical therapy.
Yeah. Awesome. And you both recently have been named commissioned pastors at your church, which is NorthRock Church. And I was just doing a little bit of number crunching myself, and I have a certain way of measuring the size of churches, and I already forgot that number. Do you remember that number? Oh, here it is. I think our church would definitely be called a mega church, and the numbers of the church, and I'm talking about the church, and a lot of the leaders in our church probably don't even realize this, but we're a church of getting close to 6,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that doesn't include many who might say that NorthRock is their church.
Yeah, right.
And so you guys lead staff members, but you also lead volunteers and in a nonprofit organization that is kind of like the nuance that, and I think that's why a lot of people turn to nonprofits, honestly, to learn about leadership, because, everybody's a volunteer, even if you get a paycheck, because you're volunteering your life, your time, to it, but you're really, really, really a volunteer when you don't get paid
Right.
and you're using your time and your energy and your talent and all those things. And to be more specific, Mason, you are the worship pastor.
Yes, sir.
And Chris, you are the campus pastor at what we call our broadcast location. We have two other satellite locations. And on top of that, we have a pretty strong internet presence, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, hey, I want to start with this question. At Lead Today, in our leadership ministry, we believe that leadership's an inside out proposition, and we teach it through 3 dimensions.
Right.
I'm already cupping my hands because I want to make an illustration. Like, it starts with our person, and then it goes into our relationships, or what we call our people,
Mm-hmm.
and then finally into our public place of leadership, which we call place.
Mhm.
And so I would like to kind of take that route at first. So when it comes to your person, Mason, let me start with you. What's been in this role of leadership, what's been the most surprising thing about leadership at this point in your life? I think it's a fair question.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say there are curveballs after curveballs after curveball,
Yeah.
and it just keeps coming. I
Right.
think that it's always something in leadership, and being able to roll with the punches, if you want to call it, being able to, just roll with it and be able to move forward through things. I mean, we consider it joy when there are trials of many kinds. Like, so I just know that there's always going to be something new. You just have to wake up every day thinking that, my goodness, what could I face today as a leader?
Yeah.
And that was a little bit surprising. I think when I was younger and I was looking at leadership and even just in church leadership, that it would be pretty mundane. But no, it is not. It is the opposite of that. I mean, I know that y'all know that there's something new every week, something new every day, and we you learn to love it, you learn to roll with it, you learn to adapt and be flexible with different people, different groups, and different meetings and stuff. And so that's what's probably been the most surprising thing for me, is that there's a turn at every corner. There's going to be something new.
Right. Yeah.
So what's clear to me is both of you have obvious talents, but I'm not going to let you off the hook yet, Mason.
Okay. Yeah.
So you are a vocalist, a darn good one,
Yeah.
and you're a musician as well.
Yes, sir.
And there are aspects to leadership in that realm. I mean, you've got to practice, you've got to know your lyrics, you've got to think about, all of those technical things.
Right.
But that's really the least part
Absolutely.
of your role.
Yeah.
I mean, as a worship pastor, you are put on a pedestal
Mm-hmm.
and you are judged through different lenses.
Yes, sir.
So how do you feel that? Do you feel that pressure? Do you?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel that in a good way.
Right.
It's not like
In a
an
good way.
unhealthy pressure.
Okay.
It is a healthy pressure. And I, obviously, as well, being a pastor's kid, even growing up, right? Like, even when I wasn't in a leadership role, like, I felt that pressure of the eyes being on you, the eyes being on me, I guess I should say. And not to say that I was perfect. There was definitely times where I was in some environments and places where, wow, that he's here, that leader is here. And I'm not perfect, obviously, but, I definitely feel that pressure in a healthy way, right? When I let that turn into stress in my life, that's when it becomes unhealthy. Right. But there's definitely something healthy about feeling a little bit of pressure, knowing that, being up on a pedestal. And like you said, Pastor Jim, like, what I do up on stage is probably 10% of my role at the church. And what I try to be very, very intentional about is being the same leader on the stage as I am off the stage. Same leader that I am off the stage in the lobby, that is the person that I am, out at dinner on a Friday night when I'm at home. And just, being aware of that. I don't want to take a mask off when I get off of a stage, take a mask off when I leave the church. And I think, in the same way, whatever leadership role that we are in, like, we need to be the same leader that we are at home, that we are at work.
All right. So you're talking about integrity. Now, Chris, you can answer that question too if you want, but let me be more pointed with you in this way. When I was younger, and it's not that I don't struggle with it today, I still do, but I know for sure when I was a younger leader, I struggled with doing the hard things. I still, I kind of knew what I liked doing. I kind of knew what I was good at, and I like kind of staying in that realm. And in leadership talk today, they even talk about, your strengths, but I have found that leadership is blind to my strengths, and leadership is really about doing what needs to be done. How are you wrestling with here you are a younger leader, you're not a kid. You are a grown man. You are ready to lead. Both of you are probably physically at your prime, in life. If you didn't know that, I'm telling you that now.
Oh, good. Appreciate that.
And you're pretty close to heading downhill from here. But anyway, Winston's over there, our tech guy today, nodding yes. Yeah, it wasn't that many years ago. We were on the basketball court, or I wasn't playing with both of you guys. I was stupid for doing that. But anyway, so I mean, have you thought about that cognitively, consciously about God, and what tends to be particularly hard for you?
In leadership, I think for me, it's staying disciplined. We all know what we should be doing, right? But we don't always do what we should be doing, and for me, it's hard, right, to do the thing that I dread the most, right, and to do it first, to go to the gym, to
good,
always continuously like being the person that I'm supposed to be being, to always just tell the truth, right, to not bend anything. And it is hard to be disciplined, but I think I've really wrapped myself in like rhythms of being disciplined and just. So
you bring up a good subject. Let me throw this out there. Let's talk about truth. When you're, are you at a place in your leadership where you consciously know when you're under a tremendous amount of pressure when it comes to truth, telling truth to yourself, telling truth to others about a situation or about how you're feeling, or how are you handling? Does that make sense, that question? Or not really?
A little bit.
When do you know, like you were saying, the pressure is good. Describe to me what pressure looks like maybe in what you're doing as leaders. And then what are your temptations in that pressure? Does that make a little bit better sense?
Yeah, I think for me, I feel pressure because in the seat that I sit in, there's people below me. And I think for me as a leader, I am not super people focused intentionally. And so it's been a learning curve for me, is that when there is pressure, right, to do the task that needs to be done, but to also consider the people that are under me. And so I've felt a lot of pressure personally in that, is how do I consider what's best for the organization always, but then also consider the people that are under me and the pressures of what decisions I have to make, who does it affect? And those things.
So in other words, what you're saying is that your temptation is to focus on the end and not the means, right? What your decision is. What about you, Mason? How would you answer?
Yeah, I think one of the main pressures that I feel is just being in the worship pastor role. Like, it is one of my jobs. It is in my job description to help cultivate and create an excellent worship environment, a spirit-filled worship environment every weekend. And one of the pressures that I feel is to keep that excellence level up. And so often a temptation of mine is to, I hate to say it, but maybe that, we're not reaching that level of excellence in a certain position because the temptation of, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to have this tough conversation. And that's something that I struggle with a lot. I've kind of dealt with people pleasing syndrome, right? And something that I'm trying to work through and get over. I want everybody to love me, right? I mean, I think most people
we all
dealt with that.
Why would anybody be mad at me?
Right, exactly. But we can't let we can't let one person's feelings, towards us affect the whole group, affect the whole team, affect the whole campus, affect the whole worship environment. And so that's a temptation that I've definitely dealt with. And so just in those moments, I've learned to speak the truth. We speak truth with love. And if you're going into a hard conversation, I think a lot of times what speaking truth looks like is having the hard conversation, which is something that a lot of leaders struggle with, like having that hard conversation, getting, in those environments. And when you're stepping into those conversations, let's say it's a one-on-one, or let's say, there's probably a third party in the room as well. Like, we're caring for your heart first off.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I want you to know that I care about you. This is why I'm having this conversation first off.
Right.
And then second off, just, being truthful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long ways
Yeah.
in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
That's good because I think what I heard from both of you, Chris's temptation maybe you're saying is to be task oriented,
Yeah.
and Mason's yours might be more avoidance oriented,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And I resonate with both of those. Definitely. And another thing that I would throw to my rationalizations to have me avoid is I would critique myself in this way as a strange psychological thing. I will critique myself in such a way that it takes me off the hook from doing what I need to do. And here's how I'll do it. I'll go, Jim, not everything is a big deal. You don't have to hold everybody accountable to every single thing. And, give some grace. Now, doesn't that sound like a good sermon? I mean,
The grace,
yeah. But then you preach it to yourself so that you take yourself off the hook, right? From having to do that. Well, let's don't leave this person thing yet. Let's talk about it. So how much do you guys, because, when I was 25, 26, 27, 28, I think you're going to understand what I'm going to say here. It's it's a little bit tongue in cheek. But what I'm going to say is I could get away with not taking care of myself as much just because I was young and healthy and had lots of energy. Whereas today, if I skip one little thing, it can come back to get me. So, at 25 versus 65, that's 40 years of difference. Yeah. And I really have to work super hard on taking care of myself. But I also have to admit that some of the things that I skipped maybe when I was younger have come back to visit me. Now, just be honest with me. You guys can probably still pull an all-nighter. I can't. There's no way. Chris is going to maybe not.
Yeah.
But
I'd be a liability if I did.
I'd be a liability on this podcast right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So okay. So here's what I'm trying to say. Do you buy into this idea that leadership is an inside-out proposition? That leadership starts by leading yourself, and if you can't lead yourself well, how can you lead others well? Do you buy into that? And if you do, what are the things that you are learning to practice and do to take care of yourself so that you can bring a healthy self into the next ring, which is your people? That's a tough question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fully bought into it, right? You can't take others where you haven't yourself been.
Okay.
And I constantly think about the fact that, hey, who I am today is going to be, it's what I'm leading out of. And it's where I'm going to be able to take people. And it's a deep conviction of mine is if I'm not willing to do the hard thing, then how can I expect somebody else to do the hard thing? If I'm not willing to have the tough conversation, how can I expect someone to have the tough conversation? If I'm not willing myself to be uncomfortable, to do something that's maybe hard for me or new for me, something that's stretching me, how can I expect someone else, right? When we get to the people, how can I expect someone else to do that? And so I'm a firm believer that I have to lead myself way before I can lead anyone else for my leadership to be effective, but then to also be just a good leader, Yeah.
You said something on the stage yesterday morning, and I'm going to ask you to repeat it the best that you can. And I also said it to you at lunch that I wrote down, and I'm going to find a way to include it in the book I'm working on right now. But you said something about the fact, the physical fact that God gave us this organ called the brain, and I'm going to probably butcher it, so I'm going to let you fix it. That doesn't have the ability to focus on the negative and the positive at the same time. Fix that. How did you say that?
Yeah. So the brain, there's a fear center in the brain, and the brain cannot process both negative and positive emotions at the same time. And so when I was talking about shifting from an attitude of anxiety or feelings of anxiety, stress, just heaviness to an attitude of gratitude, when we focus on the positive, right? When we focus on the gratitude, in this case, the brain, what it naturally does, it decreases and it kind of just minimizes the negative feelings that we are feeling, and the gratitude and the positive things that you are feeling, those just start to come to the surface, and everything else kind of just gets pushed.
I just thought that was, I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to, do my own research so I don't just, steal your stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mason, how would you answer that
Yeah.
question? Do you buy into the inside out proposition?
Absolutely. Not as taking care of what
Yeah.
was inside.
That's good.
And listen, we know that what's in our hearts, whatever's on the inside, it's going to come out at some
Right.
point.
Yeah.
At some point. COVID brought a lot of stuff out of
Yeah.
some people, probably some gross stuff that they didn't want
Yeah.
to. There's always, something that is going to, bring out what's truly, on the inside in the heart. And so it starts there. I think for me, just in the worship, the pastoral role that we're at the church, like it starts spiritually. Like I have to be disciplined every day
Yeah.
to spend time in the Word of God, to spend time in prayer. Like I have to do that. Physically, like whether it's going for a walk, going to the gym, pickleball,
Yeah.
I don't know, trying to do something every day. And funny enough, physically, like physical workouts helps me mentally as
Mhm.
well. I'm not a doctor, but there is some science
Absolutely,
behind that.
yeah.
Like
Mhm.
the mental positivity, the health that comes from physically working out.
Mhm.
And then just relationally, like
Yeah.
being intentional about my relationships. There's a lot of people at the church. So, being intentional with who I spend my time with, who I go get coffee with, who I'm pouring into. Those areas I try to be disciplined about when it starts from, because that's all the stuff
Mhm.
that's within me.
Yeah.
If you can use your imagination and you see a circle, in your mind,
Mhm.
and then you see arrows starting from inside that circle and then pointing outside of that circle. As a leader, that's what's happening to you every day. There is energy leaving you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, your answers reveal that you also have to have arrows coming into you
Good.
to fill you so that you've got something to give.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Good.
And no matter who we work with at Lead Today, I mean, we work with a lot of really great, wonderful people, leaders around the country, but none of us can stop listening to this. It's a constant reminder, of how we should be taking care of ourselves. And there's all kinds of analogies and pictures, but it really is true. Just going back to one more thing.
Mhm.
I was thinking about Mason when you started getting up on stage some years ago, and I've told you this in different occasions, and just seeing you grow. But I've also seen you grow not just as I know your heart is not in performance, but
Mhm.
but in that role, you've got to be good at what you do.
Yes, sir.
But you can also see that you've been growing something behind that, right?
Yeah.
And the analogy that I give is when I was being taught how to teach, one professor told me that for every minute that I teach, I
Mhm.
think I was telling you
Yeah.
this yesterday,
Mhm.
that how we need to spend an hour in
Mhm.
preparation.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give a 30-minute talk, that would mean that you've got to be spending 30 hours
Right.
that week for that 30-minute
Yeah.
talk. Now, maybe that decreases a little bit in time, but here's another shortcut that I want to explain of this inner circle, this taking care of ourselves. Just because you might become more knowledgeable, in this case, the Bible and in teaching the Bible, doesn't give you license to take a shortcut. And I'm not saying that is a divine equation, right? An hour for every
Right.
minute.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that I remember one elder once pulling me aside and told me that if I had to set administrative things aside for the week, if I had to put this aside, just make sure that I don't put aside the preparation,
Mm.
because the folks that are coming to congregate, they have been fighting it out all week long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In their marriages, raising their kids, in their jobs, in their neighborhoods, with their health, with their finances, with all of those things that are so real for us, that it was just so important. So it goes again to support the idea that, whatever our main things are, we got to make sure that we continue to do that.
Right.
Sounds like you guys are on the right track. So let's go a little bit further into this messier thing. So we talked a little bit about person, taking care of our person, but let's go ahead and talk about people, our relationships,
Mhm.
and help me understand because one thing I have learned, Winston and I talk about this all the time. And for those who want to know who Winston is, he's here in the studio with us, and you're familiar with him because he's on the podcast a lot. But we talk a lot about these things philosophically, especially things of race and gender and generational things. So obviously, there's a chasm that separates your generation from mine. Mine is technically called the baby boomer generation. Do you know what yours is?
Good Lord.
Are
X?
You're
That's
you're
Z, but
we're being coached by Winston.
Yeah.
Your generation Z.
Yes.
So that's like a bunch of alphabet letters away from me. And you're a millennial. Okay, so in this room,
Gen Z elder.
Okay. Oh, you're an elder.
Yeah.
It's an elder statesman.
Yeah, I'm a Gen Z elder.
Okay, that makes you feel better. That's good. Well, I'm a young boomer, so most boomers are in their 70s. So I'm a young boomer, but regardless, I'm a student. I try to be a student. Tell me what you think is unique about what your generation looks to from leadership, how they view leadership. How do you view it? I would love to hear that. Mason, why don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this, how we're going to answer this a little bit earlier. And we both kind of have a similar answer. I'm sure we'll bounce things off of each other here. But I think, man, in today's world, our generation is looking for more authenticity than anything.
Right.
Regardless of where they're at work, at church, in a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost like titles don't even matter to anyone in my generation, at least. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Right. Just looking to somebody who is the same in a meeting, who is the same when they're at work, same at home, just an authentic person. Also, when I think of authenticity, I think of somebody who does what they're going to say they're going to do. I think so many times us as leaders, and we've all probably been in an environment where we've said, okay, hey, this is our next step. We're going to do this. And we look back a year later and we're like, my goodness, what happened to that goal? What happened to that initiative? But a leader who does what they say they're going to do, who follows through. And then one kind of last note, and again, we'll bounce some stuff off of each other. Like when I think of authenticity, I think of somebody who just pushes through anything, just push through it, like just get through it. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be days when somebody might turn their back on you. Maybe even days where somebody might quit. I mean, my Lord, have we not seen that? With whatever the situation is, but just pushing through it, pushing through those hard times, being authentic through it, and doing what you are say you're going to do.
Yeah. On top of that, right, authenticity. But I think leadership in our generation, it's just more bold, just more courageous. I feel people in my generation are more willing to follow a person who does show those traits of authenticity, yes, but of boldness, of courage, of willing to make a mistake, of willing to do something. Good. And when not knowing how it's going to turn out, not being risk averse, right? Just looking up to people who are just doing the thing and doing the hard thing.
Would you say your generation is ready and willing to join something, or are they more, stand backish, waiting? How would you?
I think that they're definitely in today's world. I mean, even over these past few years, it's gotten way, more and more young adults for sure. Our generation, I should say, looking to be a part of something, looking to join a part of something. I watched something the other day, and it was like, I could completely mess this up, but the whole hippie movement, like so many people were just looking for something to be a part of. And I think it's like, we're almost like coming back to that. Like in these past few years, like young adults are just looking for something to join, looking for something to be a part of. I don't know.
In 1971, I want to say, there was a Coke commercial. What year were you guys born?
98.
2000.
This is fun.
Coke's still around though, right?
Yeah, it is. So I want to say 1971, and Coke gathered, if I were just to guess, maybe 70, 80 young adults, probably around your age and younger, maybe down to like 17, 18. And they're standing on a hillside in Italy. and each one of them is holding a Coke bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't sing very well, so I probably won't try it. But the lyric goes something like this: "Is that I'd like to buy the world a Coke." And then it talks about all these utopia type of ideas, coming together, and what have you. And when I looked at how they were dressed, I remembered that because I was 11 at the time, and there was a movement that Coke was trying to, of course, align itself to, so you could buy, you'd buy more Coke.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole idea was to join something.
Right.
And it was, I think, now this is just my own anecdotal perspective, but I think it was about the mid 80s where all of that fell apart. And I don't think we have recovered. Maybe we're just now recovering, where people are wanting to be involved in organizations and connect with organizations. So I just thought that was interesting. I want to read this text. I received this late last night. It's a question from another young leader. When it comes to gaining an individual or a group's respect, is that something that someone does in any practical way, or is it solely a presence that you have? I think what he's asking me is, does someone have the it factor that is attractive, or is it something that someone does? Now, since this came from someone in your neck of the woods, age-wise, what is behind that question, do you think, and how would you answer that?
I mean, I think so often, at the church, obviously we want to have more leaders. We are a church that's looking to grow, an organization that's looking to grow, to reach more people for the kingdom. And so we're always looking to develop leaders. And I'm sure many watching are in that same boat, where you're looking for growth, you're looking to develop leaders. And gosh, we ask this questions. I mean, at least I do in my mind, like, are leaders just like naturally born? Is it like a God-given thing, or can we like literally build and develop leaders? And I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I don't think there's a specific, there's a lot of gray area, not black or white. And so I think, whoever that is asking that question is maybe in their mind going back and forth between, like, do people just like, is this like a given thing where somebody is born with this natural, natural born leader thing? Or is this something that they've developed, over time? And me personally, I think it can be a little bit of both.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
I agree. I think people in my generation are looking for truth, and we talked about it a little while ago, but I think they're looking for someone they can trust. And I think that this question, or maybe the heart posture that this person was coming from, is that we don't trust people easily. People in my generation is we have to earn someone's trust. No one is no longer willing to follow someone out of power or rank or whatever title it is. And it's, I mean, trust is hard to earn. You know what I mean? Trust is very hard to earn. And I think it's one thing that you cannot lead someone effectively until they completely trust you. And it takes a while to earn trust, and it takes relationship building.
Right.
It takes intentionality. It takes loving the person, caring for the person. But until you can do that, right? Until you can have someone trust you, I don't think you'll really be able to lead them effectively at all.
This statement might offend some that are listening. I don't mean it in any kind of offense, but the reason why I asked the two of you to join me on this podcast today is because you both remind me a little bit of myself when I was in my 20s, and my perspective looking back at it, I was over my head, in things. I was an executive at Bank of America. I was making loans the size that I thought I would never see, in my life. But one thing that I think we all share is what I'm about to say, is I cannot think of anyone. There might have been someone, but I cannot think of them looking back. And I'm just going to pick out the age 24, because that's when I received my VP title at 24. I cannot think of one person who was younger than me. I look back at that and I think about it. Was I even conscious of that, or did I have my blinders on? And when I was, or did someone want to make sure? And I'm going to tell you a story after you guys. Don't let me forget.
Okay.
I got to tell you the story about when I was brought to a customer service situation. But you guys lead people that are older than you, I assume.
Yes, sir.
And so, what does that look like? How's that going?
Yeah, it's good. It's going good.
Yeah.
It's going good. I think.
You think because of their grace towards you, or because
I think a little bit of grace for sure. Absolutely.
A lot of bit of grace.
I'm sure there's been some moments where they're like, "What am I doing?
Yeah.
This 25-year-old kid." But bouncing off of what Chris said, I think building that trust, as a young leader, when you are leading people older than you, they need to know that they can trust you as a leader. They need to know that, he or she may be young, but I can trust them.
Right.
Just like they can trust, somebody older than them in a sense.
Yeah, I think most leaders should collaborate about most things, but if that's your idealism, it can also get in the way of you being decisive and making a call and moving ahead. So how do you balance that?
I think
when you're dealing with leading people who are older than you.
Yeah, well, going back to when you said that you didn't know if you really thought about leading people older than you, I think about myself, and I also don't think I've ever really sat down and thought, hey, I'm leading people older than myself, and I don't know why. But when I read this question, I was like, wow, like I am leading people far beyond where I am, and people who are leading in companies, you know what I mean? High level leadership. But it goes back to the trust, but then you talk about collaboration, and one of the things that I've always been advised on is to always seek counsel and wisdom. And it's one thing that I do even in the heat of the moment, right? In the seat that I sit in, overseeing a campus, if there's a decision that needs to be made in the moment, I always bring someone into it, because I know that the decision's going to be better if I can bounce an idea off of someone. It doesn't take away from me being decisive. I can make a decision, but I think it's always better to have another opinion, right? Or have another, to seek counsel, to seek wisdom. Because at the end of the day, if you're working for an organization, we all want the best for the organization. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, we can't really make the decision, right? We can't make the best decision, and we need to invite someone in that. And so I collaborate a lot personally, especially on any given weekend and any decision that I'm making. It has been something I've had to work on, because it's being a young leader and feeling like I have to prove myself, right? In my role, it was always me thinking internally like, no, I have to make the decision. They're counting on me. They hired me to make the decision. When once I started leading with the mindset of like, no, we're all on the same team. We're all here to help each other, and inviting people. And I've seen my leadership grow. I've seen my leadership become much more effective when I've collaborated with others.
There have been seasons in my life where I've looked back and I thought, what was that even about? Did I grow in that season? Did I get better? Am I still stuck in that season? If you have similar thoughts, I want to introduce you to a book called Story, The Art of Learning from Your Past. This book, written by Jim Piper, shares principles and stories that actually help us get unstuck and step into the future we've always wanted. Be sure to stop by leadtodaycommunity.com to grab your copy today.
I've been on many winning teams and many losing teams. And one of the things I've noticed about the winning teams is that regardless of the age of the players on the team, in other words, I'm just using players as a term to describe every potential box on an organizational chart, is when they realize that they're all there to serve one mission, and the org chart and the bylaws and all of those things, we really only look to those when there's trouble. And what I saw in winning teams is they would actually submit to one another. People that were 2 levels down on the org chart would sometimes, in certain situations and certain topics, lead the CEO or the leader, and that leader would say, "You lead." I know that there have been times where you both have led me. Whether you knew you were or not, I took your cue. I took your, because you honor the role, right? You honor the role. But the more you collaborate as a leader, when it is time to be decisive, the more you will see people get behind you and help you. But if you're always making the decisions without the collaboration, and then you build a resistance. So I got to tell you this story. This is when I was still doing mostly management and wasn't doing business banking, but One of my team members came up to me and said, "There's a customer who's very upset, and they asked to see the bank manager." Now, I'd already been having some problems with my age because in my early 20s, I probably looked like I was 16 or 17. I have a ruddy complexion. And so I remember my boss came to visit me one time and he hadn't seen me for a while. And so I think I kind of startled him on how youthful I looked.
Mhm.
He forgot. And
Yeah.
so he says to me, "Jimmy, have you ever thought about growing a mustache?" Then I said, "Well, I give it a try." He goes, "Yeah, why don't you do that? It might, it might help." And this is back in the day where mustaches were in. I think they're making a comeback.
Yeah.
Though, in fact, I don't think I've seen a 40-something in a while who doesn't have a beard. My wife pointed that out to me. I'm going, yeah, what is that with the 40-somethings? The Xers, they're all have
The
beards.
actors.
But anyway, so I tried growing this mustache. Now I have to break up the story into two parts because I got to tell you what happened to that mustache later. So anyway, I've got this mustache. And she comes and gets me. I go and see this customer, and she introduces me as the bank manager. I introduce myself, and this lady goes, "No, really, I want to talk to the bank manager."
Yeah.
And I remember that's when I became conscious of how young I was, and I wasn't just leading a team that was older than me. All my customers were older than me, and I think that was kind of the day. But anyway, my boss came back a couple of weeks later to pay a visit, and he saw my mustache, and he said, "Yeah, Jimmy, you need to shave that off."
He said, "Nope."
No, it was all peach fuzz. It was too obvious. It was too obvious. Yeah. So I think that's a good lesson that we can bring out here. Is most of the time your mode of operation, regardless of your age and your status, should be collaboration.
Right.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
There are times that time doesn't allow,
Right.
and the situation doesn't allow, or there's a stalemate, and hopefully it doesn't really get to a stalemate. You just got to make a decision.
Yeah. If I can add one
Please
thing to
do,
that
yeah.
collaboration thing idea. I mean, I think people so often just even want to feel like they have a seat at the table, right? Even if you're not like using every single idea that they bring, or I think there's so much power in asking, "Hey, let's try this. Try it. How did you feel about that?"
Oh yeah, that's good.
And I try to do that on stage, off the stage, like, "Hey, let's try this new system," or, "Let's try this drum fill." Boom, we try it in the next rehearsal. Okay, how did you feel about that? Even just that little sentence, like takes 5 seconds
Right.
to ask that,
Yeah.
for a 30-second response. They're feeling, hey, I'm getting to collaborate on something.
They feel part of
this.
Part of
They
it.
feel a part of it.
Yeah.
This leader cares what I think, cares what I feel. So that's all I wanted to add.
You're touching on even a deeper topic, I think, where we really have to be careful to separate the value of a person from what it is that they do. Right. So in other words, if the drummer, if how the drummer drums is directly related to his value as a person, you're going to have a train wreck there.
Right. Yeah.
But when we're trying to deal with performance, we can talk about how this performance needs to improve, not the sloppy word "you need to improve." Whenever you throw the word "you," what you've done is you have married their task and their action to who they are as a person.
Yeah.
Right. So you separate that. So like when you hear this, Johnny, that is not acceptable, as though that's hard to hear. That is a separation of the person versus, the deal, versus Johnny, you're such a bad boy because you did this or did that. Then you marry those things, together.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and I think the skill then would be collaboration. Right.
Yeah.
As you guys talked about. Another way we say it is good leadership, good coaching is more inductive than it is deductive, meaning that you are asking questions, you are collaborating. So that self-discovery, because self-discovery is always more powerful than someone giving you the answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to give them the answer. But we want that to be I think we agreed on that, right?
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
All right, here comes the vulnerable piece. You guys said that you respect authenticity, and authenticity and vulnerability are cousins. So here it comes. You got to cough up. What is a mistake that you have made in your early leadership that has taught you the most about people? Who wants to go first?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
I made a pretty big mistake early in my leadership in the current role that I'm in, and what happened was a leader was put into a leadership role, um, and really I made the decision, right, to remove them for several different reasons without considering the person, without considering their side, right, without asking questions, without asking the things that I should have been asking, and just completely dismissing the fact that they're human and that they were a person. And I think I know not I think I know I caused a lot of damage to the people involved. And in that, it's taught me so much about being people focused. Earlier, I said that I'm more task oriented. I'm wired in a way that, hey, get the task done. And I'm so grateful that this failure happened, because it's completely changed my perspective on how I lead. Literally completely. And I lead people under me who are Enneagram ones, who are perfectionists, who are task oriented. And what's funny is we sit at a table and we're in a meeting, and me, who someone who used to be the task oriented person, the one who wasn't considering the person all the time, is now the one considering the person in a seat of people who aren't considering the person. And so it's I mean, God is so good in the way that he worked it out, and in the timing that he worked it out in. And it's changed my leadership completely. I walk in to the church with a different mindset. I walk into a meeting with a different mindset. It's funny. I'm constantly, I don't have an office, but my cube is constantly being knocked at or whatever. People are constantly asking questions, and they're, hey Chris, what do you think about this situation? Or hey, what do you think about this text? Or what do you think about this email? And it's always like, okay, well, have you considered the person? All right. Well, have you considered how this can make them feel? Have you considered how much or just how much this is going to affect not only them but their friend group? Have you considered X, Y, and Z? And it's just interesting, like in the moment when I am quote unquote coaching them in whatever question they're asking me, I'm just like, wow, here I am considering the person now way more than I would have ever considered had I not had that leadership, though.
That's good.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, mine has to do more with like just a communication side of things, which thankfully I've been able to get way better at. But there was a moment a few years ago where a decision was made on our team, and maybe we've all heard stories of this. Maybe you've experienced it, but a leader on my team like found out from a third person, like a third party, in a sense, rather than hearing it from me, what should have been coming from.
Yeah, that's hurtful.
And so what it was just maybe trusting, some people in the room that, I probably shouldn't have been trusting at the time. And they went and told people, and we know how that works. And so I definitely learned, like, when we are making like high level decisions that will impact other leaders, decisions that will impact the whole team, like the team, the volunteers, your team members, your leaders, they need to hear it from you. Yeah. They need to hear it from you. A high level decisions. Right. Obviously there's decisions that we are able to delegate, and we push decision making down to leaders below us, but a high level decision was made this one time, and a leader on my team heard it from somebody else when it should have came from me. And so obviously that led to it, hey, I heard we were doing this, and it's just a gross situation, right? And sure. it would have been so much cleaner if I just would have done the communication from the very, very top. And I think I actually did have a plan to communicate it to people who needed to know. It just got out.
Both of those stories make a lot of sense. If it helps you guys, makes you guys feel better. I mean, all you did is just remind me of all of my train wrecks, down the road. In Chris's story, I remember a mentor telling me that we think leadership is knowing the right answer, and it's about the farthest thing from that. And he also said that his name was Lloyd Lewan, this particular mentor. He was just an incredible fella. He told me that it's rarely the decision that a leader makes that gets us in trouble. It's the how and when we carry it out.
That's good. Right.
And I have never forgotten that intellectually. I may have forgotten it emotionally in the moment, and then, tripped over the same thing.
Mhm.
And then, in Mason's story, I remember it's funny. We don't mean to, as people, we're people too. We don't mean to harm anyone. We just are not often aware of the power of information, the
Right.
power of decisions
Yeah.
that is in our hands. And
Yep.
I remember telling a younger protege something that I was struggling with, and I don't even remember what it was, but it wasn't even that heavy. It might have been weariness or something like that. And I did not realize how much he had me on a pedestal.
Wow.
And it racked him
Mhm.
for like
Yeah.
60, 90 days. And so who leaders can talk to about their stuff, it's just a reality. We have to be careful in that. We call that capacity.
Mhm.
Capacity is an invisible thing, but it's very real. And you guys have probably heard me say this before, but there was a certain level of stress at a certain age that I would get so stressed, my chest would get so tight that even at night I would start massaging my chest because it would get tight and I didn't even know what was making me stressed out, but I knew I was stressed out. And now, not that I don't get stressed out, I'm sure I do, but if I do, I'm not aware of it. So capacity is an interesting thing, and as we grow as leaders, we're able to take on more weight.
Mhm.
It might be because we learned the difference between urgency and what's not urgent, and what's important, what's not important. But those are really, really good examples that I think you both gave to share. Talk to me a little bit about technology. When I first started leading, we had no texting, we had no email.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
No, I actually can't.
Yeah, I mean, we had real letters, that came in the mail. You guys seen a postal service person? that was that. How does this world of technology? And maybe it's hard for you to contrast, but tell me, how do you use technology? What are the expectations around it? How do you all communicate?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe that's what they say.
With technology.
Yeah.
Okay, well, explain that. What does that look like?
Yeah, and we can bounce back and
Yeah.
forth off of this, but I mean, just within our organization, our church, like, so much, probably the majority of our communication is through technology, via technology, because we have so many volunteers. So something that I'm able to do every week. This is something that I try to stay consistent with because I think this matters.
Mhm.
But I send an email out to our whole, my whole team, the worship team. I send an email out to them every Wednesday. And so we're able to do stuff like that. Maybe you were able to do that back in the day, writing a letter out to the whole team. Probably not.
No.
I don't know. But yeah, I don't know, Chris. What are your thoughts on
Yeah, I mean, technology, it's the greatest thing ever. It's helpful. And we communicate. I mean, it's the only way we communicate, really.
Yeah.
Through texting, if I need to reach someone, if I listen to a podcast. This is one thing I do a lot. I oversee the leadership development department at NorthRock Church, and so I have interns under me, and in that, right, it's all technology. I'm constantly sending podcasts. I'm constantly sending sermons for them to listen to. I'm constantly using technology in a way that is helping me grow as a leader, right? There's a lot of information in technology, and with working through technology through technology, it's been a learning curve, right? There's some things that should be a phone call, right, and should not be a text. There's some things that should be a phone call, not be an email, and just navigating those situations, because technology can bite you in the butt at the end of the day if we don't use it well, right? And that's one of the biggest things, is that we just have to be careful with how we're using the technology, because it's good, but
yeah, I would imagine in your generation, the biggest decision is what technology you're going to use and what the expectations are around each one. I'm just imagining, right? I remember when email first came out, and at that time I was still leading an organization. We didn't know how to use email. I mean, we knew how to use it. It wasn't that hard to figure out, but we didn't know how to use it in a productive way. And one of the things that I noticed, and maybe your generation doesn't deal with this as much, but because we were sloppy and and human, we didn't really understand the ethics maybe around email.
Right.
So one of the things I began noticing is that, just pretending here, Mason sends me an email, and in the email, he's complaining about you, Chris. And then it went from that to complaining about this person, that person, or so and so said, and so said it, and it became gossip in print.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to do about it. So I just remember thinking, yeah, something doesn't feel right about this. This is not how we would handle it audibly, in this kind of situation. So I remember sending out an email to everyone on our team saying, okay, and I had to take a risk because I didn't know either.
Yeah.
So I just sent out, I said, okay, here's the deal. If you send out an email and you mention anybody's name in the email, anybody, even if it's factual, like John is sick today, even if it's because I had to go to that extreme,
Right.
Because I couldn't figure out how to do the gray.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to start with black and white in order to get, at least that's my view.
Yeah.
And so I said, if you put someone's name in the email, fine, but you have to copy them on the email. And the funny thing is when we got together as a group, they go, it was to your point. What it taught me is I didn't even need to send the email, right? So sometimes you didn't even have to send the dumb thing.
Right.
And then if you did send it and you copied that person on, it's funny how the wording was completely different, right? on the email.
That's funny. Yeah.
So much more grace involved.
Yeah. But it seems to me though that change in business and change in leadership today is just much more rapid than it was, when I was leading. I mean, ever since the Industrial Revolution, change has been going pretty fast, but not like it is today. It's warp speed. I mean, your generation continues to come up with apps and all kinds of stuff. And I'm going, well, I thought we were using this. Yeah, there's so many apps on my phone that I know need to be deleted, but I don't have the courage to delete them because maybe we're still using those apps, So yeah, that's funny.
I would say this on that, Pastor Jim. I'm sure y'all agree with this, but nothing beats a face-to-face conversation,
right?
Ever.
Yeah.
And so, like you were saying, like some things need to be a phone call that shouldn't be an email. Some things could just be a text. Doesn't need to be a call. Like nothing beats a face-to-face convo, and it does not for like everything, obviously, but just I've been trying to remind myself of that.
Yeah, I also think that our generation, we navigate, or I guess we gravitate, not navigate, to not the face-to-face. I think we are very much a generation who would rather text and would rather send something through not face-to-face. You know what I mean? And whether it's because we're scared to have face-to-face conversation, or maybe we just don't know. But I've even seen myself coaching on these things. Hey, how to respond to emails, how to respond to text, how to have a conversation in person, and when to have those. And so it's interesting that our generation, just the way that our generation communicates.
As a grandfather, we're stepping outside of it now a little bit, but as a grandfather, it kind of concerns me a little bit because maybe your families are different, but even my family has become very text reliant. And it's kind of fun to get text from my little grandkids. It's cute, but then I start thinking, well, this is how it's going to be, as they get older, because I don't want that.
Right.
When I think about my kids, they all have their own style. So I kind of wonder if our culture is what is defining how to use technology versus household leadership, organizational leadership, whatever the verticals are. It makes my mind wonder. It's not for this episode, this podcast, but it does make myself wonder.
Yeah.
Here's a fun question. If your generation has a leadership superpower, what would it be?
I think creativity is something that my generation is bringing to the world. I think even when we think about, you just mentioned the apps, right? Gen Z is creating a lot of what is happening today. And I think that it's so cool, right? That the Gen Z is so innovative, that they are so creative, that they are constantly seeking, hey, what do we not have that we can make? You know what I mean? Or what's an app that is not working and that we can make it better? And I think it's a superpower for sure to have such a creative generation.
Cool.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know if it's a superpower, but just boldness. And I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I mean, we see leaders that we may even believe that they're in the wrong, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't, whatever, but they're bold about it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think actually technology helps them feel bold about it, because you can be bold about anything online and you'll find you'll find somebody to follow you,
Right.
whether it be for good or for bad. And so I truly think that a lot of leaders of our generation, like, man, we're just going to be bold in what we believe. We're not going to be afraid of what we believe,
Yeah,
so,
we're not afraid to shake things up.
no, yeah,
To disturb the peace, obviously in a good way, but I think it's the boldness that we carry, courage.
that's good. Yeah, I like shaking things up, because change is good. Change is healthy.
Yeah.
Not that we're trying to like change everything. But,
Do you think your generation is going to do a better job at conversing? I mean, the divide is wide, right, in our country, and we saw that pretty clearly, in all kinds of examples, that we could give, and that's troubling too, right? I just got done writing is a little bit yesterday and a little bit today, just about the soundbite grenades that we seem to throw at one another, coming off of what you guys were talking about with social media as an example. But that's not a conversation. It's not a seeking to learn. It's not help. I would really like to understand what went into your decision to believe this. And instead of saying, "Oh, here's my opportunity to win an argument," but to really seek. I guess kind of where I'm at. I find myself in front of audiences that are not gathering for the sake of their shared belief, but mostly for a practical brand that they're working for. And yet I come to help shape their culture, help shape their leadership. And from my worldview, I am unable to do that without expressing my worldview, but in a very rational, logical way, where I also invite other viewpoints, and it's amazing what I get to learn. But from what you can tell, is your generation in that realm more of the same that our whole culture is experiencing? I mean, I'll give you an example. I was meeting with a young man yesterday. Well, you already know who it was because you guys ran into him. But he started talking to me loosely about his political views, and he caught himself mid sentence and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I'm going, "Whoa, what are you sorry about? Tell me what you believe and why." So, I mean, do you see any difference in your generation, or are you guys talking that you're on different that are on different sides, or what's the deal?
I think I've seen both, and really, I think a lot of my generation has been a generation of seeking to understand, seeking to know why we believe what we believe, or on the political side that we are on. And there are people in our generation who are just genuinely curious about learning about what it is that they want to learn about. But then I've also seen the other side of, hey, people are just so headstrong. Like, my generation is a super headstrong generation, and whatever opinion that they personally believe in, I think sometimes they can just be so focused on that they are willing, or they are just wanting to have an argument so that they could win. So I've seen both. I really have seen both. I don't know if you've seen something different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've necessarily seen or experienced more conversations about, hey, why do you believe this? What, or even not even asking, what do you believe?
Yeah.
I think that, and what's funny enough is the young man you were talking to, like, apologizing for being, I still think that might be in so much of our mind. It's like, gosh, like, I'm afraid to share what I believe because of,
well, there's the unwritten rule. You can't talk about religion or politics.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that will take a little bit more time to literally get that out of our brains, de-engrave that from our brains. But what I'm encouraged about is just seeing our generation. Gosh, we have these young adult nights, and these young adults talk for hours.
Yes.
I'm like low-key at home in bed,
and they're still
at the church talking, which is great. Which is encouraging. So I think that I don't really know how to express like what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking right now. Like there is some positivity, I think, coming from stuff. I don't know if we're necessarily still there yet,
Right.
where people are like, hey, I just want to sit down and
Yeah.
hear what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, I wish we could.
Yeah.
I wish we could get to that. And I think we will. And there are people who are like that.
Right.
But I think a lot of people in our generation are able to look past that and are able to just sit and talk and for hours,
Right.
just have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my concern is, can we have conversations that have no need to be closed end? You know, where this is where I'm at today. This is what I'm thinking about today. And who knows, if I run into you in 3 months, you know, it would be great to carry on, you know, the conversation. Well, let me ask you guys this, and I want to make sure you have opportunity to speak about anything else that's kind of come on your heart since we've been talking. But if you could send a message to your future self 20 years from now, so you'd be knocking on the door of 50, right? You're in your 40s, you're knocking on the door. You're certainly talking about it. You're going, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn 50. I'm probably dead and gone by then. If not, I'm in my mid 80s and found a fifth wind, you know. So if you could send a message to your future self 20 years from now, what would it be?
That sounds good.
I would just say, keep going. And I know I talked about this a little bit already, but there will be days when you wake up and you want to be anywhere else but, you know, going into your job or going into your office.
Yeah.
I've even experienced that. We've experienced it even at a young age. Like there's days where, and I'll share this with my parents. I'm like, gosh, I was there and I wanted to be at home, you know, anywhere else but here right now. But pushing through that, like there's so much that's on the other.
Yeah.
You don't get to where you want to go by quitting. I mean, that's like the most obvious statement ever, obviously. You know, and the greatest of the great leaders, like they didn't give up. They didn't quit when it got hard. And I think too many people, when things start to get hard, they're like, throwing the towel. Like, I can't get through this. I can't, you know, grow through this.
Yeah.
So while it may sound a little, you know, simple, just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. For me, I would say to do the thing that scares you the most. I think for me and the way that I've grown up, I'm so much of a perfectionist that I can sometimes not do something because it's so scary or because I don't want to look like a failure. And so, I mean, I'm dealing with that. I've been dealing with that or have dealt with that in the past. And so I think just consistently reminding myself to do the thing that scares me the most. And then also alongside what I've spoken about earlier is just to love people to where you love them so much that they wonder, hey, why are you loving me this much? Because I mean, we need to.
Good.
Yeah, it's really good. Really good. Anything dangling that you guys want to talk about?
I think one thing that popped into my mind when you were talking about what our generation is looking for in leadership these days, one more thought on that is just positivity.
Okay.
I try to stay as positive as I can when I'm around my team, when I'm around my leaders. Now, I'm not neglecting the negative. I'm not like, I'm not ignoring, I don't have blinders on everything, but everything that's, we've all heard this maybe, everything that's true doesn't need to be said, right? So there might be some bad things going on or some, you know, tough situations, but I don't have to speak that over and speak that to my team. Not even some of my leaders need to hear like some of the bad things that are going. I try to stay as positive as possible. And I think people are attracted to that in our generation. They're dealing with so much negativity outside in the real world. You know, they're dealing with so much. Just open up your phone, go to any news. I don't know if anybody watches the news. It's the most negative thing ever.
That's how they sell ads, which is even more sad.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The Spurs game ended the other night and the news came on and we're like, what are we doing? It was just bad news. And so there's so much negativity and bad things going on in the world that like when they step into that office, when they step into your office, this meeting, for me, it's up on a stage, office state, whatever it is, a huddle, like just being positive. I think people are attracted to that, not neglecting the negatives, but staying positive throughout everything. Every word that you speak, life-giving.
Good.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I just look at our generation, I see like we're the generation of today. And I feel like I feel like if my generation could just be bold and willing enough to just lead the generation, I think it would be so just the world would be a much better place if the generations you just started leading.
Good.
Well, what I want to share with you guys is I told you the first part of why I asked you to be on the podcast is that, you know, you guys are out ahead, you're leading, and it kind of reminded me, you know, that's why I told you I wanted to be on it. But there's another reason too. You're an encouragement to me, both of you, and how you're leading. I mean that because I just see so much out there today where it's so many folks do the least. They can't wait to. I don't want to throw mud for, you know, just to throw mud, but they just waste their time. They waste their, you know, their life. You know, Sunday our church put on that movie, the Nike Michael Jordan story.
Yeah.
And the way we do it is that we splice up a movie and then we have talking points related to our faith in the movie. And when Pastor Jonathan shared the 4 kinds of faith, I was unprepared for it emotionally. It caught me by surprise, and I was sitting at our Midtown campus, and I wrote, as I often do, I keep them on my notes, and these are the 4 kinds of faith that we pulled out of that story to grab upon and hopefully apply. And one is optimistic faith. And what I put in parentheses is that, well, actually, let me back up, because I'm philosophical in nature. You know, one of the things that I realized, Pastor Jonathan didn't say it, but, you know, it's kind of like when we're talking, Chris, you say something and a paragraph comes in my head.
Yeah.
You say something, a paragraph, right? That's kind of what happens to us. And that's why these podcasts, if we wanted to, can go, you know, 6 hours. I mean, and there are podcasts that go on, you know, that long. You just have to keep coming back next Tuesday, next Thursday, and keep chipping away at it until you're done with the podcast. But when he said you need somewhere in his proposition, he said you need 4 kinds of faith.
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard that, what I thought of was this: God has gifted everybody with faith, not just your church-going Christian. He's gifted everybody with faith.
Right.
What an amazing God.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's what we do with that faith, you know, that matters. So anyway, that's the context. So the 4 kinds of faith are optimistic faith. In parentheses, I wrote in spite of obstacles. The second one is observant faith. And I really love what I put in parentheses or the subpoint. And I think Pastor Jonathan even said this: ask for eyes, ask God for eyes to see what others don't. Man, that landed for me. And then the third kind of faith, so optimistic faith, observant faith, and then outrageous faith. Outrageous faith is that risk taking that you guys were talking about, leading boldly, not playing it safe. And then the fourth kind of faith was overcoming faith. You know, to me, that was from a Christian perspective, that's resurrection faith. That's a faith of rising after you made a mistake, rising from falling, rising from failing. And you know, while I was sitting there and I had tears coming down my cheeks and snot coming out of my nose and trying to sink in the chair so no one can see Pastor Jim crying, you know, then I was thinking, what is wrong with me? And what in the heck is happening?
Yeah.
And just a contrast between what you guys might go through to what somebody who's 65 is going through. Here's what was going on with me. The whole idea of retirement is repulsive to me. But the world says, just sit back. That was one thing. And then death, you know, itself. When people say saved from what? I go, are you kidding me? I mean, have you not noticed something? Everybody kind of dies, you know, eventually. So don't you want to know, don't you want to have hope that there's something beyond, you know, something beyond that? And, you know, I think one of the best things that we can always do as leaders is ask questions, ask questions of one another. And, you know, the question I was asking myself is, what in the heck is wrong with you? Why are you so emotional? Well, it's because God is stirring up in me, and he has been for a couple of years now, a new kind of faith for a new season in my life.
Good.
And what I would want to say to you guys is you are leading in a new season. You're leading in a new era. And I hope that you are right about your generation to push down cynicism and raise up hope and faith again. Good. To be a little more black and white. It's just like when you play golf and I was playing pickleball last night with some of my small group friends, and there was this one particular shot that it was a big bounce, and I just had too much time to think about the shot. I changed my mind 3 times on what I was going to do. So it ended up happening. It went into the net, right? Yeah. And in this life, you should ask a lot of questions, but not to the point to where you can't make a decision as to what you believe and then live that because it'll be a better shot. Chris Juarez, Mason Moore, man, I'm really, really glad I had you guys on the show, and thank you for what you had to share.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was
a
great.
Blast.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us on the Today Counts show. We got so much more planned for you, so stay tuned and stay connected on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. And remember, today counts.